According to reports from local government officials and on social media, residents in areas piloting ID checks during the local elections have been turned away from polling stations due to a lack of documentation. In an attempt to cut voter fraud, of which only 28 cases were alleged during the 2017 general election, Bromley, Gosport, Swindon, Watford and Woking councils were piloting the scheme. MPs and councillors have been among those complaining of residents being unable to vote in the elections because they did not have the supporting identification on their person. Cases reported. Angela Wilkins, a councillor in Bromley and leader of the local Labour group, tweeted negatively about the scheme, saying it prevented voters and caused delays. Just been round the Sea Palace polling stations. 5 people not able to vote due to. So why are we doing this? At Bromley, CLLR Angela Wilkins, at Angela Wilkins 1, May 3, 2018 update on Sea Palace. This is a smaller ward with just 2 CLLRs. CLLR Angela Wilkins, at Angela Wilkins 1, May 3, 2018 The Independent also reported the case of a 76-year-old man unable to vote because he did not have a bank card or passport. The man had reportedly lived in the area 40 years. Likewise, The Guardian's political correspondent tweeted anecdotes from Bromley that varied from indifference to the scheme, to disenfranchisement and confusion. But the voter ID trial is certainly bringing up anomalies. One voting clerk who's been at same Penge polling station for years had to turn away someone they know personally, and know where they live, as they didn't have ID with them. Peter Walker, at Peter Walker 99, May 3, 2018 Meanwhile, the Labour MP for Lewisham West and Penge tweeted that 2 people have been unable to vote at her polling station. Just been to vote. Was informed that 2 people had already turned up without ID this morning so had been unable to vote. Very worrying and backs up all the evidence that the voter ID pilot in Bromley is plain wrong. Ellie Reeves, at Ellie Reeves, May 3, 2018 Labour councillor Tahir Aziz also told the Press Association that a man was turned away from a polling station in Woking because his form of ID was not accepted. He had used a Surrey County Council document with his picture on. Mr. Aziz said, "This gentleman turned up, showed his ID which included a picture that was clearly him. It was an exact resemblance, but they wouldn't accept it as it was not on the list of acceptable forms of ID." He was fuming. He was furious. He is a British national and he couldn't vote. It is having an impact on certain people being disenfranchised by this trial. Natalie Bennett, the former leader of the Green Party, also tweeted negatively about the voter ID trials, saying they were causing anxiety even in non-trial areas. In fact, handful of places around country trialing this Tory. This was always going to be a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The Electoral Commission found that out of nearly 45 million votes cast in the local and general election in 2017, there were only 28 cases of alleged voter fraud. That's less than 0.00007% or 1 case for every 1.6 million votes cast. And out of those 28 cases, there was only 1 conviction. 1.67% of all voters across the 5 pilot areas were unable to vote because they did not have the required ID to vote. Cat Smith, at Cat Smith Imp, May 3, 2018 And then to top it off, Bradford wasn't even in the trial area but was asking voters for ID and was turning actual voters away. I'm glad they've apologized, but we must assume some of those voters never returned to cast their ballots, which raises serious questions. Cat Smith, at Cat Smith Imp, May 3, 2018 Darren Hughes, chief executive of the Electoral Reform Society, said in a statement, "Today has shown these trials to be the chaotic, undemocratic mess many predicted. There is mounting evidence from the pilot areas that ordinary people have been denied their democratic right to vote because of the voter ID requirements. This is exactly what we feared, that this draconian measure would result in blameless individuals being disenfranchised. Electoral fraud is a serious matter, but the government are taking entirely the wrong approach. There has not been a single example of personation, the type of fraud the trials are intended to prevent, in any of the pilot areas in the last decade. Even senior figures in trial areas have spoken out while the government continues to push misleading statistics to back its mandatory ID push. The worrying fact is that we'll never know how many voters have been put off by the government's ill-judged experiment. With more and more examples of honest voters shut out by this policy, these deeply flawed trials must not be a fait accompli for a national rollout. After the polls have closed, we will be assessing the impact of the trials. In the meantime, we would encourage people to use their vote in their local elections. Government response. A Downing Street spokesperson said in a statement, "The facts are that local authorities told all voters that they need to bring a form of ID in these pilot areas. ID can be things like a bus pass, a driver's license. The overwhelming majority of people are casting their vote without a problem. A great deal of work has been done in these pilot areas to prepare the public. In places like Bromley, people will have had 6 pieces of direct mail about the pilot, and there's been a widespread poster campaign. More for my local elections 2018. A local elections canvasser for my party, but sometimes I have to ask myself, why do I do it? Naughty local elections voter guide. Can I bring my dog? And am I allowed to turn up drunk?